grid, stand up. SBC, Black Elvis, Roddy, OG, it's wavy. Look, started from the bottom, so we off the grid. Tryna make it to the top, we soon live off the grid. Had dreams of making teams, I was just a kid. But we off the grid, yeah, we off the grid. On the come up, so we off the grid. Had dreams of the league, we was all just kids. And the bullets from the underground, they often miss. The podcast bringing light, so they don't call it quits. Now pass the rock, I'm open on the 10. They call me wavy in the red zone for the win. And do your dance on them, raise the roof, we got the fans rolling. Catch a pick and then do it again. Chicago ain't my home, but I can't bear to see us lose. Playing rough like Emmitt Smith, I'm bringing 22s. I move smooth through the traffic like convertibles. Try to play me man to man and I'ma have to prove you. Look good, feel good, play good. Only talking prime time, I need to pay good. Was more than just a game, we wasn't from the same hood. The ball kept us off the block, had to try to remain good. Started from the bottom, so you know we off the grid. Trying to make it to the top, so we live off the grid. Had dreams of making teams, I was just a kid. Oh, we off the grid? Yeah, we off the grid.
New York City football community, get your popcorn, because we're about to get into it. Off the Grid is going to be something like you've never seen before.
Welcome to the premiere episode of Off the Grid. I'm the commish, here with my co-hosts, D-Dub and Roddy. We're going to bring you the best in New York City football. Now, we all know New York City is a basketball town, with all the other sports coming in second, if any place at all. However, football, not to be confused with football or soccer as they call it in the States. So we decided to refocus our energy and tackle the topics surrounding youth football in New York City. So let's get right to it. D-Dub, with COVID-19 putting a halt to almost everything we do, how has that impacted youth football in New York City?
Excellent question. I think that every organization has handled that problem a little bit differently. Locally here in East Harlem, the Harlem Jets have used things like Zoom exercises. It's been really difficult. Youth football is something that you gotta be together to do. And doing that distance, doing football period distance can be a challenge. But I think people have been as creative as possible, and at the very least try to do things to keep athletes active and engaged.
Okay, now with that being said, for the last 6 months, what should or what could a kid have been doing to prepare for this unusual season coming up, if anything, Roddy?
I think it's kind of hard for any kid to sit down and say, how do I prepare for a football season during COVID? But I think during those 6 or 7 months or so, when we were in quarantine and we weren't able to go outside or whatever, doing anything, whether it was working out in your house or going out for a run or going out to catch, I think would have been beneficial for any kind of kid. Now, things are opened up now, so I think it'd be beneficial to try to, now you got to do things like reach out to coaches, figure out if the season is going to be played, because after that, now you got to get recruited. Now, if the season doesn't happen and I don't have any film to show a coach, how does that work out now? So now I think it's just trying to be more prepared than you were before.
Hey, listening to this, because this is some real important stuff. I hope they're really paying attention that they're losing footage and film, and it affects their scholarships and moving on to other things. Now, D, why don't you just tell me, what is the current state of high school football in New York City?
So to answer that question, first we have to really break down the two leagues that, pretty much exist on the high school level. From the high school level, you have the PSAL, and then you have the Catholic High School League. And those two organizations have taken two slightly different approaches on how to manage this issue. The public high schools have pretty much canceled the season. In fairness to them, that decision, I believe, was heavily driven by political decisions and, what the mayor and the governor pretty much had to say about it. And then the Catholic High School League has intermittently allowed for a 7-on-7 season, provided that, the outbreaks don't get out of control, with the goal being in spring of 2021, a replacement season will be played for the season lost. But again, in fall of 2021, the regular season is going to be played. So I think that's an interesting dynamic for an athlete to consider, that they're going to play 2 football seasons basically within like a 6-month period.
But if you're a senior, you don't play 2 seasons.
Yeah, and that's that theme.
Oh, that's bad.
Interestingly enough,
That's bad.
didn't only just exist for kids that are going to be graduating in 2021. This young man right here was a 2020 grad.
You know, it is what it is. It happened. Can't control it. But kids who either didn't graduate yet or are going to be affected by COVID, don't say, oh, because the season is canceled or because we're only doing 7-on-7 that you're not going to go to a workout or you're not going to do something. Work your hardest, and then if the time comes and it's no season, then it's no season. At least you could try to go some other avenue. But just sitting around not working.
You stay ready, you don't got to get ready, man.
Yeah.
There you go. So how does that make you feel that COVID is affecting your senior year?
Well, my senior year was over. So last year when I graduated, I kind of already knew once like it was time. They said, oh, clear your lockers. But the day that we went in, we had school, we was about to have practice, and then it was like, everything on social media go crazy about COVID. I cleaned out my locker, and then as I'm walking out, I'm walking on the concourse, and I'm just like, yeah, it's over. Because I already knew it was like, why? I just got here, we just had like our first padded practice, and I think that was the worst thing about it all, is especially like, as a senior, you already know, like, it's sometimes you get into a different element. You wasn't gonna be able to get that opportunity. It kills your whole joy. Some kids is expecting like, yeah, I'm about to go to college. College ain't the same. Forget about sports. College ain't the same, period. So.
Okay. The Catholic high schools have started a 7-on-7 league. What is 7-on-7 for those of us that don't understand what that is?
So essentially, remove the linemen from the game of football, and you just have the skill players. So there's 7 people on offense, 7 people on defense. So the receivers have someone defending them. The running back has, a linebacker or a box player defending them.
So is it tackle or is it?
It's touch.
Rough touch.
There's 2 different ways it can be played. Some people play flag version of it. The traditional way is 2-hand touch.
My question is, what are they playing? Rough touch or flag? And how does that?
No, it's no flag.
No flag.
It's just, it's pretty much rough touch.
So it's like how we played in the park. Hike the ball. Is there a hiker or the quarterback just?
He'll go the whole series or whatever. He'll snap the ball. He's not eligible though.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's just 2-hand touch. But I'm not a fan. I think. 7-on-7 is cool. Like, if we're gonna transition into 11-on-11. Because then it's like, alright, you put the skills out there, it's a show, you run it, whatever, it's cool, you get the concept. But it's not football though, so it's not really like, even though it's an extracurricular now, just in place for not having a season, I don't know if I would want to be told, oh, 11-on-11 is canceled, no contact, but we're just going to have a 7-on-7 tournament.
Is that the concept of developing skills with 7-on-7 is okay with you? But to try to placate players and say this is going to replace football.
Because there's certain things you can do in 7-on-7 you can't do in 11-on-11. That you just, once the guy touch you, it's over. But I know guys like Jalen Smith, that if you tag him, you got to bring him down or he's not going to go down. So it's kind of like you putting some players at an advantage because some players will go crazy. All of that. If you a tall guy, it's easy. You throw the ball up, you catch it, it's easy. You could do that at 11-on-11 too, but some of those guys who would get, you doing all of these extra moves and spins or you hitting people, you can't do that because it's no pass.
So if you're an offensive
even
position
though
player,
you don't even got to spot.
You're just
So,
out.
being someone that has relationships with people in the coaching community, you got to try to do something, right? So that's been a big thing. I know an offensive line coach that basically said, listen, what about my linemen? So some schools have actually tried to incorporate something into the 7-on-7 where they have big man competition. So while the 7-on-7 game is going on one side of the field, you got all of the linemen doing tug-of-rope wars, bench press competition.
And competitiveness is great.
But you're not playing the sport. So you're not learning how to get to the quarterback.
And that's cool.
I think philosophically, I hear what everyone is saying. But for me, right, It's basically saying, I want this, I can't have this, so if I can't have this, I do.
No. Sounds like I have a big kid at home who ate the refrigerator, and now he's not even gonna play. And he's 6'4",
And
200 and plus pounds.
Commish.
Offensive line.
That is a reality. I'm telling you that I know a kid that was a lineman, and I saw him a few days ago, and my mouth hit the ground. Like, linemen are big guys, but I know how much weight I gained in COVID.
That's
right?
what I mean.
So listen, everybody is living in the same world right now.
Are you really preparing them for anything?
And that's what
they're
all
not
the
actually
schools.
playing.
Listen,
Because I understand the skill set.
them.
Because the skill players are still getting there. They learning how to run the routes. They're catching the
But
ball.
even with them, like I don't enjoy. Like you can't use your full ability. Like people, when you go out and you say, "Oh, that kid is a football player," he got to be in a football setting where it's pads 11 on 11 to be able to do what he does. You
Okay.
can't
No, I
really display.
understand that.
Nah, but I'm not. And then I'm not even saying don't do 7 on 7. It's cool, but then it just comes to like how long we going to do 7 on 7.
I mean, in relation to basketball, that's the street player versus the skill. The non.
Yeah, anybody could go out
So you
and
say the street player is better, but when he get into the setting, he don't know how to set the back kick. He don't know how to. He's just been a street player. So I get the comparison. You're not setting me up for true football.
Listen,
You set me up for flag football.
in a regular
for 7
football
on 7.
season, absent COVID, absent this, global issue that we're dealing with, 7 on 7 is played, linemen work out during the off season, they do things to keep themselves in shape and to continue to build themselves up.
How they doing it now?
For me, it's important to promote the message of do what you can to be as prepared as you can be. Listen, we know the situation is what it is.
So you
right?
think just even like talking about it is just kind of like you could talk about it, but it's not beneficial. Like saying that 7 on 7 is not beneficial, like we know that, but it's just kind of like
I wouldn't even say it's not beneficial. I will concede that it's not football. It's not 11 on 11. But we know that. I think we're expecting it to be something that it's not supposed to be.
It can't.
It's the best that we can offer
At
under
this
the
moment.
current set of circumstances. The alternative is sit on the couch and get fat.
Or sit in the hood and
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother story,
have a
man.
history.
I'm glad you said that, man, because for me, the game of football and highlighting it in New York City is really about creating opportunities for our young people. If you remember growing up in New York City, 80s, early 90s, there were programs. You had the summer camps that the NYCHA ran. You had track meets. You had basketball tournaments.
Yes.
And, over time, a lot of these programs have faltered, funding has disappeared, and our young people are,
Yeah, because remember,
turning to other things.
I guess that's what I would like to say. Most people don't consider one sport guys athletes because you're only practicing and doing one thing. We played everything. We had swimming, we had basketball, baseball, football, track. You had a reason to do something because you didn't know what you were good at. So it would let you know, as much as you want to be a football player, you're the fastest guy on the block. You need to run track. As we was talking behind the scenes, you realize Iverson was a two-sport guy. Canby was, not Canby, football. LeBron was a two-sport guy. No, Randy Moss was a two-sport guy.
Moss was nice.
And believe it or not, Wilt Chamberlain did everything. Track, Olympics, everything. And those are athletes. We're now pushing dudes in one direction because we're a basketball town, but we're not utilizing the potential of what these kids are possibly doing. That taking away the funding killed everything.
Listen,
and we didn't understand what that was.
That soapbox speech you just did, I know at least 10 coaches that are clapping and giving you a
But I think it's important, like, even for, like, kids, because even, like, a coach or your father or your mom, they tell you, we kept you in extracurriculars so that you're not in the streets or because you're not outside. And truth be told, if you don't got nothing to do, you're going to be outside. You're going to be doing something you're not supposed to be doing. You're going to get caught up. Rather than In the fall, I'm playing football. In the spring, I'm playing baseball. In the summer, I'm running track. It's a bunch of different things. That's why when I stopped playing football, and Coach Heckman came, he said, "Oh, I want you to play lacrosse," but he was trying to get me to play lacrosse for a minute. But I was like, "Nah, I'm running track. I'm not feeling it." Play lacrosse in the spring. Now I had something to fill up that time. Even though I was still a football player, I wasn't playing as much. It was just now I found out how good I am at lacrosse. Why not pursue it? So even you might be walking into something you don't know nothing about, just because somebody is like, "Yo, spend your time doing this." You might not want to be outside 24 hours, because that's not even productive anyway either.
It's the difference in outside is way different. I don't want to sound like the oldest dude up here, but I am. We had a childhood. Even our childhood games made us athletes. Running up the stairs, racing the elevator to the top of the floor. Everything we did as children prepared us to be athletes. Learning how to hop the gate. Everything. I mean, kids just don't have these outlets.
Most of the things we did was because the technology had been developed for us to do it
and
different.
Our parents said, "Get out! You're getting on my nerve. Go outside."
I think
Now
this is
it's stay
important
up
though, to tie this in for the audience to understand something. The message we're giving here, jokes aside, is that kids need variety. Trying to have an 8, 9, 10-year-old specialize in the sport, it's just really a bad idea. Even if the kid is all world in that sport, you're only going to help further develop them by letting them do other things.
Don't force them, because even like not that it's bad, because even like it'd technically be a force, because a kid don't really have no say. Even if you ask him like, "Oh, do you want to play this? You want to play that?" Let's say he's not good per se, but he don't even want to be there. Don't. Being that guy is not a good guy, because I know guys who, you play with them, they come to practice, they lazy, sometimes it don't gotta be sports. Maybe he like music, maybe he wants to draw.
Basically what we're saying, if I was a parent watching this right now, what message am I really receiving? I'm apprehensive about the violence, things that preceded this whole situation, concussions and everything else. Now there's COVID. So how do you make me feel comfortable about sending my kid out there or continuing to do something productive to keep him in this life?
Competitive sport for me is something that's important to society. I think there was a time when competitive sport was ingrained in the process of growing up. You did something competitive. Because the reality is that we will compete for the rest of our lives, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we do, day in and day out. I also think the element of teamwork and collaborative effort is something that we're missing right now. Think about how much talent exists in the world, globally, but how we just can't get right. Football to me is the one sport that takes 50 kids on the high school level, depending on the size of your school. Some schools have more kids than that. And every kid on that team is working towards the same goal. Whether that kid is an every down player, whether that kid never gets on the football field. The culture of that, I think, is something that's an important element of society. And people will disagree and argue that. And listen, that's what this platform is for.
My standpoint on this episode right here is just, I think for it to work ever, but especially for it to work now, I think that it has to be a balance, right? I think that the coaches, the parents, whatever the case may be, have to understand that for the athlete, it's not going to be easy. COVID, not being able to play, not knowing if I'm going to have film, not knowing if I'm going to get recruited, all of that stuff is running through our heads while we still have to work out, come to practice, all of that, whatever the case may be, go to school while COVID is going on. So I think, it's important for the players to know, look, I still got to work hard and show out for the coach, the mom, whatever the case may be, but also knowing that for the kid, cut him some slack, he'll get there.
As we wrap up episode 1, we like to leave you with a little final words. These words are for our beautiful black queens out there. We would like to say we hear you and we understand you are the most disrespected and disregarded creature on God's earth. We hear you and we apologize, for without you, no man would exist. Have a good night.
was more than just a game, we wasn't from the same hoods. The ball kept us off the block, had to try to remain good. Started from the bottom, so you know we off the grid. Trying to make it to the top, so we live off the grid. Had dreams of making teams, I was just a kid. Oh, we off the grid? Yeah, we off the grid.